Hi everyone, welcome back. So I had intended to make this video much sooner, but I don't know, with all the events in the world and everything, I just kind of got put off. I had wanted to make it around the 1 year mark of my orchiectomy, but I wasn't able to. Just had way too many things going on, and so I'm making it now. This is the follow-up to my last video of orchiectomy. It has been well over a year now since I had it, and I just wanted to give some updates about some things that I've noticed, like with physical differences and even like mental differences and things like that. So getting into it, I'll start with a lot of the physical things first. As far as like the actual like area that I had the surgery, all of that has healed up like really nicely and like good. It didn't have any issues aside from just some like minor tenderness that actually lasted for pretty much the entire first year. So that was a little bit concerning because I wasn't really certain if that was normal. I had a little bit of issues finding information about that stuff. I kind of had a little like trouble finding information in general about orchiectomy with like trans people and stuff, because anything that you type into Google about orchiectomy pretty much brings up cancer stuff. There isn't a whole ton of information about like bilateral orchiectomy, which is the one that I had. Some of the other information I found as far as that goes is another thing that I felt was important about sex is that right after that surgery, like once you've recovered a bit, like it's important to just know that there's a very slim chance that you're not 100% infertile immediately. I want to say it's maybe like about a month or two just to be safe that there's some sort of small potential there, at least from what I have found. And I wasn't able to find that information very easily. Aside from the swelling and stuff like that, it did finally subside after about a year. There was, the swelling was extremely slight. Like, I almost couldn't tell if it was actually swollen or not. But that's all finally gone away as well. HRT became much more effective. Like a lot more effective. Some of the very first things I noticed was that my waist area started to like really redistribute fat and stuff a lot more, because I kind of tended to hold more of my body weight there than I really would have liked to before. I also lost weight after surgery, which I think was a lot of like losing muscle mass. I'm still noticing more changes in regards to HRT. It's actually like every time I have had like a change in like my meds or something, which I did have a drastic change in my meds because for my first like 2.5 years I wasn't really on the amount of meds that I should have been for transition. So I felt like that kind of like didn't cause those first 2 years to be very effective, and it kind of almost felt like things got reset whenever those got adjusted. And there's been a couple other times they got adjusted that also sort of felt that way. Like when I started progesterone, that kind of felt like it did too. And in this case, the surgery even kind of had that effect as well, because suddenly testosterone is not a problem anymore, and it was a problem for me before that. And so after surgery, like that really seemed like the first time that my body legitimately had estrogen as the dominant hormone. And so there's been a lot of differences within this year. There's been a lot more breast development. They've gotten like a much fuller, and I did continue progesterone for a while after that, and I know that progesterone has played into like that stuff and helping that development. I kind of jumped between taking it and not taking it for a while, and currently I've decided not to take it again for a while and see how things go. But I know that that worked for me, and that just having that like lack of testosterone really helped. And even now, like I'm still kind of gaining more like body fat around like my hips and stuff, which is really nice. I ended up switching over to estrogen patches, which I think has also helped a lot because it's just a lot more consistent, like a much more consistent delivery system that I've been lucky enough to be able to get. There has been other things involving sex that have been very noticeable. The whole aspect has been a very interesting thing to navigate. First off, I'll start off by saying, at this point, everything does physically still work. It does require like more focus and things. Everything that I could do before, I can still do if I want to. Most of the time, there is occasions where I just won't, but like that's fine. Sensitivity seemed to kind of shift around, and I don't know if that was necessarily all from the surgery, and just kind of having to kind of like get used to things again and like figure things out again in a way. My sex drive has definitely decreased. It's kind of shifted in a way that like I think is a lot more related to like the HRT side of things. It's not that I don't have it, it's just that it's not like I can just flip a switch and it's just there. Like there is definitely a lot more like build up to just even having those sorts of like desires and things. I can't really say a whole lot more on the topic because I just struggle in that area in general anyway. I mostly can say that physically things work. There is another dynamic, however, that could definitely be involved in that, and that is that my dysphoria has returned, unfortunately. I know in my last video I talked about how that had been reduced a lot, and in some ways it definitely is. Like, the place I am now versus the place I was before surgery is definitely better. It's just that that's still there. It's not gone, and it's been slowly kind of creeping back in, and it hasn't gotten to a point where I think every single day about how I can get bottom surgery and like how I could pull that off financially and like what I would do and all that stuff. But it has definitely increased again, and it has definitely become very apparent that that's still something that I want a lot. I know that definitely is another area that is involved in some of the struggles that I have, and I'm just hoping that I don't have to stay there, because at this point in time, I feel like I'm kind of more in a limbo. Like, it's almost like part of the surgery was done, but now I'm just kind of like hanging out until possibly, I can get bottom surgery at some point, I hope. I am still really glad that I got Orchie, though. It has taken a lot of anxiety away. The anxiety definitely hasn't come back in the same way. Some of it has come back in the aspect of like, wanting to get bottom surgery and stuff like that still, but a lot of like the other like wild things before of like being fearful that like I'm gonna be potentially forced to like detransition because like what if I can't have my meds and stuff like that, and also just not having the testosterone under control. That was very scary for me. Like I was just at a point of just I didn't want to take any more blockers because they were already making me feel so bad, and at the same time, I didn't obviously want testosterone to be causing me problems either, so I was fearful that even though I was, like, taking hormones and stuff, that, like, for one, that they still weren't being effective enough, and for another, like, that testosterone was still able to do some things that I didn't want it to. Having that anxiety gone is such a relief. I'm really glad I don't have to deal with that. Another thing that actually has been a relief to me, interestingly, is an area that I thought that I actually might regret, which is the infertility side of all of it. At least for me, it ended up actually being a really major weight taken off of my shoulders, is the best way I can describe it. Oddly enough, it just has been, and it has been ever since surgery, which I'm actually very glad about, because that was an unknown area that I didn't know what to expect, and thankfully that's something I don't want and I never have wanted. And even in terms of me ever thinking about it, even long before I figured out I was trans, I actually always thought more in terms of adoption anyway, if that ever did become a thing that I thought about wanting. For me, it works. I don't know. I mean, I know other people definitely have different goals with that, but that was the thing that always kind of I feared with any surgery in that regard, or even when I started HRT and stuff. All of that said, I do kind of still feel kind of lost somewhere between, in a way, the genital dysphoria is still quite prominent and pretty problematic. The upside to it is that it's made me realize that I still really want bottom surgery, and it's made me more confident in the thought of having it. Hopefully you found this video to be informative and helpful and insightful, because I think that it did contain a little bit of info that doesn't seem to really be out there very much, and that was another reason I wanted to do this video, is because I was having issues finding the information that I was looking for, and I haven't come across very many videos like this one that talk about this, and so I just felt like there was a need for it, and so there we go. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. Thanks for watching this video, and until next time, goodbye.